What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Filsinger Games Character Spotlight with Mike and Brock.
Mike.
And I'm Brock, and today we are doing another Legends of the Galaxy episode. And today's legend is Bruiser Brody.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Definitely a legendary figure. What we do on these episodes is we spotlight our memories of the wrestler, how we would fantasy book them in a Legends Fed in any time period, and then we'll send them all the way to the future and how we would use them in a Champions of the Galaxy setting.
Yep. Well, you can start it. It was your guy, your pick.
It was my guy. Unfortunately, I missed a lot of Bruiser Brody stuff as he unfortunately was killed when I was 6 years old. So I didn't get to see a whole lot of his stuff. I saw a lot on tape, like his Japanese matches with Abdullah the Butcher and stuff. I remember seeing those as a kid. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what is this crazy stuff? Like, super athletic for a big guy. And then he was doing all the hardcore stuff before that was even a thing. I just remember just seeing this big, hairy man doing all kinds of, like just moving around like, a small guy. And then just going crazy with this Abdullah the Butcher character. And I just thought he was awesome. And then I find out, later in life that he had been murdered and all that. And very sad. Like he was only 42 years old and still had his whole life ahead of him.
Yeah, for me, growing up, I had 5 wrestlers on my wall,
Mm-hmm.
like that I would honestly, try to put posters up. The Road Warriors, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Ric Flair, Bruiser Brody, and the Honky Tonk Man.
Nice. The greatest intercontinental champion of all time.
So Brody was one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers growing up.
Okay. So you probably have some more fond memories than I do.
Yeah, I watched a lot of his matches. I saw he did wrestle in Canadian International sometimes. So
Okay.
you had him and Abdullah, him and Hercules Ayala fights. I saw him wrestle. We used to have a show called Pro Wrestling Plus, and it
Okay.
would spotlight wrestling matches from around the world.
Nice.
It was a great show. The only promotions that never showed were the big 3: WWF, AWA, and NWA back then. So
Makes
you
sense.
saw all these little minor feds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd see him in Puerto Rico a
Okay.
lot, which is where he was murdered. And I remember being devastated when I found out.
Oh yeah. It's horrible.
And I can't remember how old I was. I was probably 16, 17 when he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal was to become a pro wrestler. And I said, if I ever, I will not under any circumstances wrestle in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just me putting my foot down.
Mm-hmm.
And luck would have it, Smith was in Puerto Rico, and he called me up and he's like, Mike, I got you a booking in Puerto Rico with Carlos Colon. I'm like, sorry. I said, I will not book it. I said,
Mm-hmm.
he goes, your flight's included. You can, come down. He goes, you're not going to make a lot of money, but it's Puerto Rico, get you some exposure. I'm like, I will not wrestle in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
I said, ever since what happened to Brody, I said, it was just something I made a promise to myself.
Yeah.
This is like, okay, I get it. He goes, it's dumb. It's stupid, kid. You're shooting yourself in the foot because, yeah, I probably could have made it, a bunch of good contacts down there.
Mm-hmm. But the principle,
Yep.
you got to stand by it. I commend you for that.
And but there are some things about Brody that I remember. Like I remember, and this is the weird part. He did an interview, but he didn't do the interview. He was tagging up with somebody or his manager, and I don't even remember that. All I remember is him wandering around in the background with a light bulb in his mouth.
Like Uncle Fester.
And I'm just watching, and so I lost all focus on what was happening, and I'm
Mhm.
like, what is he doing?
That's great.
And to this day, I don't know who he was being interviewed by, who was doing all the talking. I just remember him wandering around with a light bulb in his mouth, like this is completely
That's
blew me
funny.
away. And then I think most people have seen the infamous Luger Brody match.
I was gonna bring that up. I'm glad you did. Where Luger just leaves.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because Brody wasn't selling. Now I've heard different reasons on why,
Hmm.
Brody did what he did. It's because basically, from what I understand, most of the story, he was upset that Luger was leaving,
Okay.
and Luger was kind of putting down Florida,
Okay.
moving on to better stuff,
Hmm.
and Luger was like, "I'm getting the hell out of here before you."
He kills me. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, that clip's a good one. I think Bill Alfonso was the referee, so he kind of has a nice
Yeah.
recounting of it.
And I remember watching him in the AWA teaming up with Nord.
Okay.
I, I think they were facing the Road Warriors when I saw them. It was just ended in a double DQ. That's
Yeah.
what you're gonna have with a lot of times with those guys. They were all
Right. The star power.
yeah. The most interesting match I ever saw him was him and Ric Flair for the NWA World Title.
I've never seen that one. I'll have to look for that.
It was a good match. Flair got because Brody became the face and Flair's
Hmm.
the heel, and it was really interesting to watch and to see him wrestle. Like I watched Brody do a drop kick once, and I was like, holy jeez.
Yeah, he got some height on those. He's a big dude too, 6'8".
Like, and I've seen the match now a couple times where it's the Undertaker's debut and he's taking on Brody.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever.
Texas
Undertaker
Red.
talks about it on the on the Steve Austin show,
Hmm.
where he launches up against him and clips him in the chin and starts calling a match, and Brody just like, nope, and turns the tails and just literally beats the hell out of him. But that's the downside on what Brody was. Now he protected his character a lot, but he would take advantage and beat the hell out of some guys.
Hmm.
I've heard different stories. Like Al Snow talks about where he was doing a handicap match, and Al went up to him and said, "Hey, I might have a concussion. Can you hit any part of my body, but please don't touch my head."
Hmm.
And he goes, he didn't say anything to me, and he goes, but during the match, he broke my partner's nose because he didn't sell a boot properly, so he just stomped him in the face.
Oh
And
man.
he goes, when his big flying knee came down on me, he goes, it was light as a feather. He goes, he goes, he knew I was hurt, but I was, going through the
Yeah.
match. And he goes,
Hmm.
he protected me. And he goes,
Hmm.
but my partner, was being a bit of a, I'm going to stand up a bit. And he goes, and he kicked the crap out of him. So in one match, you had the good and the bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other funny story I heard about Brody, he was taking on one of the NWA junior heavyweights, the guy who can crush the vice, who can crush an apple in the grips,
Oh,
Danny Hodge.
yes.
So he's taking on Danny Hodge, and he tries to do the same thing where he just eats him up and beats the crap out of him. Except the guy he's wrestling is Danny Hodge.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone who what swam with a broken neck to save his life or something like that.
And so I guess Danny taught him that night what a shooter is.
Hmm.
And Brody had a whole lot of respect for him after the match.
Okay.
And I guess Hodge controlled the match. Yeah, we're doing this, and there was nothing Brody could do because anytime he tried, and I guess Danny would just grab him and twist him. Now Danny still laid down for him, but
Hmm.
through the whole time, Danny was just like, I could legitimately end this. And so he got a whole new respect for guys. Now, unfortunately, that lack of respect is what probably cost him his life at some point.
Probably. Probably had something to do with it. That just makes me sad that there was never any real justice in that.
No, I was like I said, it was happened in Puerto Rico. That's I know it's a kind of a lawless, you know, areas. Like I
Hmm.
know guys who have wrestled there, and they said, yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
WWE is going to be there next week.
Yep. But
I'm
how would
sure
you
it's
book?
I'm sure it's changed then since
Oh
then.
yeah, yeah. There's going to be things like security.
You're right. Who knew? So the era I would drop him into is the 90s. I think he'd be perfect for a 90s hardcore based ECW type fed.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, feed guys like Sandman to him, Raven, all these kind of guys, just see what I know Sandman has a card. Like most of the ECW roster has a card. You could definitely plug him in there, and I think he would fit perfectly. He would do well, and I think you'd get some entertaining matches out of him too.
yeah. That's what I was saying. Drop him into an ECW Fed,
Hmm.
or I would have loved to see him and like I had heard rumors of he had talked to the WWF about doing a program with Hogan.
Hmm.
I had heard about that. How much of it was true, I don't know, but that would have been
Oh, that'd been amazing.
that. Yeah, that he would have taken Hogan to the limit. No, he still would have done the job to Hogan, but it would have been a guy people were like, oh, this is the guy beating Hogan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they would have had great matches because Hogan could work.
Oh yeah, I've seen him in Japan where he was
Hmm.
like where he was fighting Inoki. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, it was just the Vince McMahon machine didn't like that for whatever reason.
Yeah,
So it was just the two or three big moves, but the guy could go.
yeah.
Like you look up on you get New Japan World for a month and just watch a bunch of Hogan matches on there. They're good.
Yeah.
He hangs in there with all those guys.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, the first time I saw Hogan versus Inoki, he was wearing black trunks, and I'm shocked. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, he has a great drop kick.
Yeah,
The Hulkster.
but that's what I drop him into. I drop him into it like you said, a '90s Fed, but I drop him into either an ECW style Fed or a WWF Fed where he's the new big bad to go against Hogan.
Okay.
Now I know there's Hogan bootlegs out there, but
Oh
that's
yeah, plenty. The heel machine.
yeah, and I think that could have been a big run.
Yeah, they could have made money. They could have made big money, those two. Not that Hogan didn't make big money with
No,
everybody, but that
but that
could
that
have
could
been
have been a
huge.
that could have been a road to WrestleMania before there was a road to WrestleMania.
Hmm. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Because finally somebody like Hogan's size too, like
Well, even
because
bigger than Hogan.
yeah, because he was always bigger than all these guys that the heel machine would put ahead of him for the most part, or at least more athletic looking. Like you got
Yeah, I think
Earthquake and Kamala, and
I think other than one man gang, Hogan was taller than all the rest.
hmm
And in the in the early '90s too, there was Undertaker showed up,
yeah,
and so Undertaker Brody Part Two.
yeah, a little different scenario.
So,
Undertaker was still fairly new then, though. Like, well,
yeah,
he brand new to the WWF, but fairly new to wrestling still.
yeah. So how would you use him in a GWF style promotion?
I was gonna go the time travel route just so we could save his life, and I was gonna have him be brought in by the hero side to challenge Mayhem.
Oh,
I think that would be a really fun
team him
thing
up
to
with
see.
War
Yeah, he'd be a good addition to War, I think.
instead of Holocaust.
Yeah, he could be their enforcer, and I would just call him Brody because it seems like the Champions of the Galaxy characters like that
Yeah,
one name, or even Bruiser would work. But I think Brody sounds cooler.
I had. I was going to do the time travel thing, bring him ahead,
Hmm.
but I was going to call him King Kong Brody,
Okay.
And but he was going to be paired with his manager was going to be Cannibal.
Oh, okay.
I thought he would fit right in with Cannibal's kind of mentality and
Yeah, that would work
his
pretty
group,
well.
and he'd be a big enough star where you could feed him some of the, because he was feuding Tarak and those. So he could just feed him those guys, and he'd make a big impression on the way
Hmm.
to a bigger run.
Yeah. There's a lot you could do with a guy like Bruiser Brody in the GWF.
Yeah, but there's also one thing is almost I'd say, well, the Galacticon where Necro Butcher showed up.
Okay.
I can't remember the year.
That was probably either 2008, 2009, I think. Because
That could
before
be,
color cards, I know that because his
yeah.
card had just come out.
But we were at the Holiday Inn at watching wrestling, and Necro Butcher was there. But I created a set. You did the cards for me,
Yep.
but I created a guy called Brodich, which
Mm-hmm.
is Brody and Frank Goddich,
Uh-huh.
and I called him the Intelligent Monster. And
Hey.
I because I'd wanted a Brody character,
Yeah.
and this was before Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think only Greg Bundy and myself were part of the game. So,
Yeah.
I never would have thought we got to where we were now and actually
Mm-hmm.
have Bruiser Brody in the game.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I created a guy based on Brody, and he's got a bunch of his moves and his finishers and stuff. And I gave him, zero Jody, -3 power, ring A, and um, but just to put a spin on him, I called him the Intelligent Monster. So he's from Brimstone, but his whole background was he was obsessed with BBC television, so he talks with a British accent.
Nice.
I just didn't want to do the whole complete, and utter ripoff
Yeah. The
of
wild
Brody. I just
man.
wanted also to mix it up a little. I thought it was fun,
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
but that's something I did with Brody, because there's like you said, there's so much you can do with a guy like him.
You could even throw him on the Gladiators team pretty
Oh yeah,
easily. He would fit right in. He's another one like the Road Warriors. Like, he's so like timeless that you can put him in a futuristic game and he fits in perfectly. Don't even
yeah.
really have to change his name or anything.
No, like I know he was big in the St. Louis area. Like he wrestled a lot for Mushnick,
Hmm.
and he wrestled a lot at the Chase. So that's where I'd mostly see him, because we get videos
Yeah.
from wrestling at the Chase at our video store. So that's where a lot of my early Brody stuff came from.
Hmm.
And now, with thanks to YouTube, you can literally look up,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, hundreds of hours. And trust me, I've tried to find now. You can find Brody interviews on TV, and one of his other nicknames was the Intelligent Monster.
Hmm.
He had two nicknames, King Kong and the Intelligent Monster. And but he does some really good interviews, and he was doing like shoot interviews before shoot interviews were a thing.
Yeah.
And but he was one of these guys too. He played football. I don't think he tried out for a pro team. I don't think he made it. I think he tried out for the USFL or something like that.
I am not
He might have
sure.
even made it.
Let's see.
You're our fact check guy. Since I'm on my computer, I can't really look it up.
Right. Uh,
Because this is back when a lot of ex-football players became wrestlers.
right, right. Um,
And I know he played football. I almost
he
want to
was
say for like Washington or something.
Texas A&M, then known as West Texas State. And he played at the TFL and the COFL.
Okay.
Texas Football League and the Continental Football League. So semi-pro.
Yeah.
We're being trained by Fritz von Erich.
Yep. Down in Texas. That's it's a he had a very short run.
Yeah, because he was only 42 when he was killed.
And if you've ever seen it, The Dark Side of the Ring, they do a. I recommend watching the episode that he's on.
It's a good
They
show.
talk about him.
Poor Tony Atlas, like he went right back to that locker room when he started talking about it. I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
Like you could see it was all like coming back to him, and he was starting to relive it, and he was not doing well with it.
No.
Tony Atlas and Cowboy Bob Orton just won some tag titles this week at some Texas Indy at 62 and 64 years old, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Tony Atlas, he's another character.
Yeah. He's also a big dude. Still, he's a big dude.
Oh yeah, I met him at Galacticon in 2019. Yeah,
Philadelphia.
yep. There's nobody at his table, so I just hung out with. I paid for a picture, and then I was his best friend for about an hour and a half. He's a super nice guy, though. I had Hope with me. She was just under a year old,
Yep.
and he's like, that little girl right there. He's like, you're never gonna get ahead in life. He's like, I have 3 girls. He's like, anytime I got a little bit of money, hey dad, I need this. Yeah, he was telling me all about his family and everything. Super nice guy.
Yep.
Tony Atlas.
But yeah, like I said, if you get a chance to watch the Dark Side of the Ring, him and Dutch Mantel and a lot of those guys, it was just a complete disaster.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mess from start to finish with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it should have
The
never
fact that they're
happened.
like, yeah, it's Puerto Rico. We don't take stabbing seriously.
But this guy's an American citizen. Well, I guess everybody in Puerto Rico is, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's sad. Definitely sad that gone too soon for sure. Probably would have had a lot of major runs still if
And
still
the thing
around.
that with him that shocked me the most was because wrestlers weren't dying back then.
Yeah.
The steroid era was just starting to come in. So,
Mm-hmm.
Wrestlers, didn't have the cut chiseled bodies, and the steroids weren't deteriorating their bodies as much back then.
Right.
And that's why wrestlers are, every couple of months after a little while, oh, this guy died, this guy died, this guy died.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, Bruiser. It was Adrian Adonis died in a car accident, and all of a sudden, Bruiser Brody died murdered.
Mm-hmm.
To have somebody murdered, it was like
Yeah.
a wake up call.
Yeah, that was unheard of.
But that's how it's good to talk about him. I love talking about Brody, and I'll watch his matches still to this day. I'll pop in every so often.
Mm-hmm.
But and the Brody Flair one. I think it's at the Chase actually.
Okay. I'll have to try and find that one.
It's a good match. I think it's about 35 minutes long.
Okay.
And it's a good match. I don't want to spoil it and let you who knows who wins and
I'll check it out for sure.
who wins and loses that NWA World Title.
One thing that bummed me is when Brody got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, they didn't make it a big deal. They just kind of announced it and called him a legacy entrant. So that kind of was a bummer, but he's in there. I think it's because they don't own all of his match footage. It's probably the main reason he didn't get the big induction into that Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, here's the match. Bruiser Brody versus Al Snow and Coco Lewis.
I watched that one too. Good stuff.
Yeah, just going through, there's a lot on Brody, and he did a shoot interview.
Nice.
So yeah, like Dusty Rhodes and Bruiser Brody, and Bret Hart even has Bruiser Brody. Everybody had Bruiser Brody stories because the guy traveled.
Yeah, he got around.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I thought the guy was awesome, because he wasn't pinned down to one Fed. He literally just went wherever he wanted. He was
Yeah.
a nomad.
Yeah, he became an attraction.
Yep.
Everybody wanted him because, everybody wanted to see him. So all the territories were doing whatever they could to get him booked and getting good matches out of him. And
And he knew it. He held guys out for money. The guy wasn't an angel.
right.
There's plenty of stories where he'd show himself and make sure the fans see him. And then like I want a bit of a raise because it looks like there's a lot of people out there.
Hey, more power to him.
Yep. But we should probably lock this one up.
All righty. Good stuff. Thank you for listening, everybody, or watching, however you consume our product. We really appreciate it. If you have not yet done so, click on the red subscribe button, which I think is right here-ish. Maybe here. No, here. Right there. Right there. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. And while you're here, scroll on down to the description and check out all of our friends who make Filsinger Games related content, including the official Filsinger Games podcast Roll Up, the Legends team's Uncharted Territory, Dizzy Dice from Lee Longpre, and then we have the Filsinger Games Fancast from Grant. Here on YouTube, we also have Solo Promoter from Grant, where he plays Filsinger Games and other tabletop wrestling games and other sports games as well. And then we have After Further Review, and then we have Dave Little's Heartland Championship Wrestling, which he plays live on Saturday nights. And you also can find my Twitch information there. I stream a bootleg fed every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's been an ongoing thing for almost 3 years now. We're having a good time with it. So if you have any Filsinger Games related content you'd like to link, shoot one of us a message. We'd be happy to include it below to get the word out for your content. So yeah, till next time, everybody. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Later.